Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in our second session in this course. Tonight we're going to be talking through. We're going to walk through setting a course. Just the quick overview. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then we're going to demonstrate each of the programs and how to set a course. Right now, I'd like to turn things over to Adam and Nia to talk a little about the club.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Just wanted to offer a few notes about Raritan Yacht Club. My home on the Raritan Bay, conveniently located from almost everywhere in New Jersey. Located in Perth Amboy, proud to be one of the oldest yacht clubs in the U.S., tracing roots back to 1865. It's a great place to get out on the water, like-minded sailors. Enjoy dinner in the galley overlooking the bay. Very active sailing community with racing events, especially Wednesdays, and some new racing sessions taken off on the weekends. Active cruising community, access to great world-renowned cruising grounds. And you can bring your own boat, get on a friend's boat, or join in the shared boating program. We have a fleet of 4 Colgate 26s that are available for the members to use, and a Catalina 25 that you can take for overnight. As I mentioned, sailing year-round, summer sailing sessions for the juniors, ASA certifications for new sailors, and frostbiting in the wintertime. So that's when the real hardy sailors come out when the weather gets cold and race each other on Flying Scots, which is a really nice platform for doing that. And currently, the RC lasers have been having heated competition, the radio-controlled sailboats, and it's been very enjoyable for everyone. So just wanted to mention, if you save the date, the British Virgin Islands Tourism Board has teamed up with Moorings and Sunsail, and they're hosting a party at the Raritan Yacht Club March 26th. It's going to be quite a bash, live music, a lot of food and drinks, giveaways, and complimentary painkillers. So hopefully it's open to members and non-members. So if you're in the area, please stop by and visit us at the club. Over to you, Lou.
Thanks, Adam. And just being as we have so many people that are not from the club, we have, if you're a reciprocal yacht club, we have guest moorings for your availability. If you're not, we have, for dinner, not a problem. If you overnight, we have, you can book a guest mooring. Information is on the site. If you, so just your presenters tonight, there's some background information. Gary is going to be describing Expedition, how to put a course in on marks and course in on Expedition. Kelly's available to answer any more difficult questions and will be presenting in upcoming sessions. Eric is also going to be presenting in upcoming sessions and will answer questions in the chat. And Dale is going to be demonstrating QTVLM tonight. Just a couple reminders. Okay, please mute yourself if you're not on mute. And questions, you can always put questions in the chat. We're going to answer questions at the end of the presentation. We will make an audible field call on whether we want to do Q&A after each demonstration. All right, so last week, again, we just talked about the programs that were available, how to download and install the public domain programs or any of the programs, locating, downloading, and storing charts, and we talked a little bit about the difference between raster and electronic charts. So that was last week, and we've had a hearty bunch of questions both at the session and afterwards, and appreciate you guys doing your homework. Okay, this week's class is setting a course. We're going to download some boat information and the boat information is polars and sail charts. We're going to get into that a little more. They're going to come into play later on in the class, and then we're going to talk about planning a route. So the first thing, boat information. Really, we're going to use the boat information in optimization. You're telling the programs what the boat can do, how it can perform. But logically, in the tutorials you'll see online and the information in the user's manuals, it really covers this stuff in this order. So that's why I wanted to cover it in this order. Okay. So what's called a polar is what talks about the boat speed at each point of sail. And then there's also going to be, these programs also have the ability for you to load in a sail chart. And that will actually tell you what sails, it will predict the sail changes and what what sails you will have up. You know, if you're on a long route and the wind's picking up, it'll tell you approximately when to change your sails. I just wanted to point out there was somebody in the interim between last class and this class, one of the developers, the developer of QTVLM, pointed out that it's a very good cheat sheet. It's basically, it's in addition to the online manual, but StarPath navigation site is very good. I think there was a link to it in the prior session, but there's also a QTVLM specific cheat sheet available at this link. So I just wanted to indicate that prominently somewhere for you guys as you go through the homework and the balance of the class. So keep in mind where it is, those of you using QTVLM. Okay, so polars, like I said, we're not going to be using it very much now. We're not going to be using it all this week. I just want you to know it's here. What is it? It's a representation of how fast any boat can go at any point of sail. It could either be presented, you guys can see my cursor over here, right? Yes, Adam? Okay, good. So it can be presented graphically, as you see here, or in a tabular format, as you see over here. Okay, I just want to point out, so it's always going to have wind speed and point of sails are here. Wind speed are these concentric circles, and then the actual boat performance is these colored lines, and that's the boat performance at a single wind speed. Okay, this is particularly a J30 I just pulled down for a while. That's a symmetric boat, so you can see how it goes down to 180, and that's how you can tell that. Here I just pulled an ASIM boat, and you can see that you know that the speed DDW is not very good. Your angles are something different. So that's just, we're going to talk a lot more about this in optimization in class 4, but we just want you guys to know it's here. So when you hear people talk about target angles and polars, and is your boat you know going to speed, this is where all that comes from. Where do you get these from? The programs, each of the programs have a lot of preloaded polars that you can download. So it's just going to be a point and click operation or a drop down box. But if you don't see your boat or something like that, you just pull down a similar boat, not a problem. You could find them in other places. If you have your boat, if you have a handicap, I think Perf works that way, but specifically ORR, they have what's called, they generate and provide the polars to you via their VPP program. That stands for Velocity Profile or Velocity Predictor Profile. So you can actually purchase it from your boat if you have a custom, you know, sail suite or anything like that. If you've got a one design boat, you can usually the class websites will have it up there. There's also a very good site here that has a lot of polars for boats, and it actually has, you know, multiple polars for different boats. People can upload them there. So that's about all I want to say for polars this week, but we'll be coming back to that. The second thing is a sail chart, and that is a graphical. Again, it could either be tabular or graphical. That it just tells you what sails are flying, what sails you can fly in what wind speed and wind direction or wind angle. So that's what these different colors are, each different sails. This is sometimes you'll see the chart like this, okay? Sometimes it's tabular. These are called, I think they're QDD charts. You'll see these more often, and these show that the sails will overlap. So you could have either of two sails for the same wind speed and angle. So that's about all we're going to say on sail charts at this point until class 4, just so you know it's there. So I'm just going to give you an overview in each of the programs, and then I'm going to turn it over to somebody that's going to do a live demo. Well, that's when we get to the points. Where are the boat performance information? If you're using Expedition, up here in the top, you can go to Polars. You download Polars, and you'll get this. Here's your polar graphically and as a table. Okay, it's going to be these nav polars. That's what you want for this phase. If you don't have, it tells you what boat you have right here. Okay, if it's not specific or similar to your boat, you can load out other polars. You click the load link, it'll bring you to this polar sheet, and you can see there's a whole bunch of boat types here. You can see if there's anything closer to your boat. Hit open and it sucks it right in. That's in Expedition. The sail chart in Expedition, you go to the S for sail chart, and it will if you can hit open here and it'll tell you what file it's using, but this is what the sail chart looks like in Expedition. You can get to a more advanced version of the sail chart, but we'll talk about that later on. It really doesn't matter. It's all just how it appears to you. Okay, in QTVLM, you go to boat. It'll put this drop down. You go to boat settings. In boat settings, you can pull down your polars right here. Here it's telling you what the boat is using right now. Okay. You can pull a polar in. If you hit import polar, it will your drop down is here, or you can pull in the file for something else. A more advanced topic, we'll just point out while we're here, is you can also modify the polars. If you're only able to sail 90% of what the polars say you can do, you can modify it right here so the program knows what your optimization is doing. By the same token, you come down in the same boat settings, you come over here, sail configurations, and that's here. And again, there's going to be you can pull a sail chart in. So that's where it is in each.
And then one thing that came up, I'd just like you to maybe spend a little bit more time talking about the difference between the polars and the sail charts, highlighting what one is telling you versus the other, please and thank you.
Sure. So the polars basically tell you the speed at any point of sail, given like a stock set of sails, what's typically on the boat, and then it's just basically what the boat is capable of. If you have a different set of sails, maybe you don't. The big thing on a sail chart where you may need it is, let's say you don't have an A0 and you just have an A1. You can block that sail out so that the program knows you may not be able to sail at that point of sail as efficiently. That make sense, John? Good. Anybody want to add anything? Kelly, Dale?
I think that
the one thing. I'm sorry. The one thing I would add is just so. I mean, it's obvious, but people need to kind of be aware that if you're getting polars off the shelf, you don't know necessarily what sail complement the boat had when those polars were created. So for a one design boat, it's obvious, but if you got a California or something, those boats are going to have widely different sail combinations, and so it's one of the things that adds uncertainty to it, right? That you need to know how those polars match up to your sale inventory.
So on the VPP, what they do is they calculate your total sale area and then expect you to buy the right sale to do that. Okay, so it measures it and says, this is how much sale you're going to be carrying. And that's what it'll calculate it based on.
Well, but that's only partially true because the VPPs also ask you what sales you have. When you get those are based on rating applications, most of them, and they, your rating application asks you what sale combinations you have. So in theory, that's right, but there is still variation in them. And if you go online and you look for California polars, for instance, you'll see a lot of different polars that have different speeds, and that's why.
This is actually a really good point to say. It's a really good segue. We are putting together, and we're going to put at some point during the duration of tonight's class, we're going to put out a poll. But I'm planning those kinds of things at the end of this course for an advanced topic. So some of this we're going to be covering in the optimization section, and some of this we're going to put in an additional topics or supplemental topics, and we might just put together a session on that. We've got some stuff in our head, but if you have suggestions that you want to see, drop them in the chat box, and our moderators will kind of keep track of them, and we'll keep that in mind for future sessions. All right. Getting back to setting a course. So the programs differ a little bit here, and I'm going to let the specific presenters get into it. I'm just going to go over it at a high level. The Expedition talks about marks. So when you set a mark, it isn't necessarily a race mark. It can be a buoy you're trying to get to, a point of land you're trying to get to. It's just basically a waypoint. Okay, you can do that. You can set these in Expedition by right-clicking at some point on the map. And you can then program that waypoint or that mark. You can either sail to it, keep it to starboard, or keep it to port. Okay. One suggestion that's going to make things easy as you guys are working with your own routes is it's very easy to inadvertently move a waypoint when you're just trying to click on it and do something with it. So when you set it, after that, you're going to want to lock it. And that's also done. They'll point that out, but that's also done via a right click. Okay. So once you have all these marks put in Expedition, then we'll organize them into a route, and that tells the program what sequence you're going to be traveling those in. And then once you have the route, we can optimize it, and that's some of the thing that entails some of the things we've been talking about, and that's going to be the subject of class 4. Just in addition to setting a mark, again, we're talking predominantly about Expedition right now. Here's your marks menu in Expedition. In addition to that, you're going to set a minimum depth. So you get over here in your settings menu, you go to these 3 lines, you get your settings menu. You can set a safety depth and
Lou, watch your mic. Just try and speak into your mic. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. So you can see they're highlighted in that settings menu. Okay. Then remember, we had said that the raster charts, the RNCs, that's just a picture of a paper chart. So it's not going to know, the program's not going to know what is land and what is not. So to tell it, you put in something called a race note, and it appears over here in red. Okay, and what that tells the program is when the program's optimizing a route, it can't go through this red triangle. So here, this is, I think that's a race note to get you to go through the gut and not.
Hey, Lou.
Yeah.
Every time you lean to the right, you're cutting out. I don't know if you've got a bad connection or something.
Yeah, it's as I turn away from the mic. All right, I apologize. I'll try. I'm looking at my second screen, so I'll avoid that. So a race note is what's going to tell the program to steer away from land in an RNC if you're using RNC charts. if you're using an ENC chart, there is a checkbox in the setting menus where you can say avoid ENC land. And that'll be back in this screen somewhere. We'll get to that. Then the other thing I want to point out again is both with both charts, but especially with electronic charts, the detail level varies with your zoom level, as you remember what we said last week. So what you really want to do at some point when you think you're done with your routing, or in later classes when you think you're done with your optimization, you want to zoom way in and follow your track or walk the course and make sure you're not going over any shoals or anything like that. So that's just a reminder for further on in the class. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is turn it over to Gary Nachman, and he is going to take control of the presentation, and he's going to walk through a live demo of setting marks and a route within Expedition. Then next we'll move on to showing the same thing in QTVLM. So if you want to, Gary, I'll stop sharing, and then Gary, you're good to go.
Okay, thanks, Lou. So basically, to create a route, you have to understand really what a mark is, and you're placing a location on a chart. I like to start with an Expedition, a CMAP-based chart, because it's easier to pan over long distances. And there are really two methods of creating marks to create the route. One is using existing marks that you have on your chart, using something called the Route Builder tool, which is found on the marks page. It only works with marks that are labeled always draw. I'll show you how to do that. Basically, you're placing the cursor at a desired location, right-clicking and selecting ping mark, and then you edit the mark and designate it as always draw. Then you can click on the Route Builder tool, then selecting the existing mark, you left-click to include it in the new course. And when completed, you can review the entire course, and you do have the ability to insert an intermediate mark or a new beginning or an end mark as well. So can you all see this base map in Expedition?
Not yet.
Negative.
We see your slide, Gary.
Okay, so let's go back to sharing. How about now?
There you go.
Okay, so you can see here that it's very easy to drag this chart. You don't have any problem with tiling or pausing, and so it's really a very easy way to move around. You have the ability, if you click on this little zoom center, I can kind of click and zoom, click and zoom, click and zoom, kind of a quick way to come in. You can see, though, this is a pretty gross approximation of where the land is, so you wouldn't use this for your final navigation. And so I've already created some existing marks. And so I'm just going to say, well, let me go off here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say ping mark. And then it lets me name it. I'm going to call this watermill because it's off a watermill. And I'm going to say always draw. And I'm going to click lock. And I'm going to basically say sail 2 here. It's not letting me do that. Okay, so what I would do is you can see how these move around if they're not locked. I haven't locked this one yet. And so I'm going to click on my mark page, click on Route Builder. Then I'm going to left click on ward secondary, create new route and set as active mark versus leaving it to port versus leaving it to starboard, but I'm going to want to go from place to place. And so you notice this changed from white to yellow. And then I'm going to click again on this next one, add as an mark. I'm going to click here, add as an mark. I'm going to scroll the chart just by grabbing it. The way I can do that is by clicking this hand thing here. I'm going to click on this. Doesn't want to let me do that. I'm not quite sure why. Huh.
Do you have to unclick pan?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Not usually not. Huh. And block windmills as after Fire Island Light. Okay, another way to do it. And then I'm going to click on this one. It may be because they're locked. And then I'm going to click on this one here. And I'm just going to stop there at basically beaver tail light. And so I don't know if this is safe to travel. So what I'm then going to do, I'm going to go back to charts. And I'm going to choose an electrical chart, an ENC. And then I'm just going to search. I previously downloaded the entire East Coast of ENCs and RNCs from NOAA. So I'm just going to put in Narragansett. So I'll put Newport in. And click open. Good. And I'm just going to move down. So there's Beaver Tail Point. So am I safe? So I'm just basically going to zoom out a little bit so I get a better view. And notice I have auto chart clicked. So as I pan, the program is going to change to the most appropriate chart. So that looks good there. I'm by Point Judith. I'm outside of the exclusion zone there where the heavy traffic is.
Hey, Gary, just a sidebar. Can you actually move your mark off of Point Judith?
This one here?
Yes, sir.
Well, what I would do is I would have to right click on it and click unlock. And then say, yeah, you know something, I'm a little too close. Let me move it this way. Then I'm going to right click and say lock. Okay. But, you know, since I did that, I got to recheck that it's still a safe course to the next point. So let me zoom out a little bit here. You notice the you lost depth now, but you do have the blue safety depth noted, and you can actually set what those safety depths are. But let me zoom in here, make sure I'm close enough. We're not too close to those windmills. That looks good. I'm in deep water. Those purple X's mean that there's a shallower sounding than the surrounding area. Now it just tiled to a different chart. Okay, so there's Fire Island, off Fire Island Light. Now, I don't like that. I'm a little too close to those buoys, so I'm going to move this one over there like that, and then I'm going to lock it. Oh, that doesn't look good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert a mark here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is pull it up like that.
And then lock it.
And then let me lock it. And then I'm going to scroll back to make sure I'm okay over there. Yep, that looks good. Oh, that's a little too close for me. So I'm going to insert another mark. And then I'm just going to raise that up like that. Let me mark that. That looks okay there. You could just see it tiled to another chart. And it changes the magnification. I guess that's the one advantage of having actually paying for a CMAP chart, is you don't really get that jumping as it tiles, but the flip side is, it's hundreds of dollars. So here I am is where I started in the Ward secondary channel, and that really gets us home. Now, if I want details about this course, I go to my marks page, edit marks, and this is called route here. You notice it's hard to see, but it's actually highlighted. And it basically has all this information. And then I click on details, and it basically tells me the course and bearing after the first mark to the next mark with total miles. It doesn't give you any information on your ETA because you haven't put in any information on how you're going to travel. And that's really, if you had instrument data coming in, giving you course and speed, you could pull up something called a window box that would give you that information. Now, what I can also do now is I may not have locked all those buoys, but I can actually click here now and click lock, and they're all locked, my marks, not the buoys. So that's one way to do it. But let's say you don't have any pre-existing waypoints. So what you can do, I'm going to switch back to my CMAP chart. And let's say I don't want to look at this one here. Let me go to marks, edit mark. And then what I'm going to do is say clear active, because Expedition basically draws the active route. And magically, it's going to be gone. Just the marks that we had pinged are there. So what I'm now going to do is click visual marks. Left click on it, and it's called easy. I'm going to call it RYC class 2. And then I'm going to right click someplace near where I want to start. And then I can actually click right here. And then I'm going to hit escape. Okay. Well, obviously I don't have wheels on my boat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now zoom back in at the beginning of where I'm going to start. I'm going to click this little zoom in center button to do an easy way of zooming in. And then I'm going to change my chart. I'm going to click on, let's say, an E&C for Lower New York Harbor. Let's see. Lower New York Bay and Sandy Hook. Okay. And that took me
To Sandy Hook.
to Sandy Hook. Okay, so well, I don't really want to do that. I'm too close to that commercial channel. So I'm going to click, right click, insert mark. And I'm just going to drag it down like this.
And you can even
That look-
slide it back down the course if you wanted.
Yep. And I'm not going to lock it yet. And that's okay there. And this is one of those crazy quilting things.
I think somebody mentioned if you take auto chart off, that might minimize that.
Well, it won't pull up since it's telling it, well, let's try it, but you're now no longer telling it to open the best chart, and
Okay.
it might not tile. So that's really not good. I don't want to go
Okay.
into the Rockaway Inlet there, do we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a mark, and I'm going to pull it down, let's say here. Okay. And see, that's good actually. And we probably want to insert another mark, pull it down off Jones's Inlet. I'm going to zoom out here, and now I have to go back and make sure that's okay. We're going to insert another mark. And pull it off. And, you know, how far offshore am I here? You know, there's a way to do that. You click on
Perfect.
the marks page, you click this divider set here, you click on the shore, you click here, it's about 3.5 miles, 3.4 miles. I'm pretty happy with that. And you could clear that. Let me zoom out again. Pull that out, kind of like this. So I'm going to move that over to here. And I'm going to insert a mark over here to get out of the commercial lane. And I don't think we want to end up at the Castle Hill Inn, so we'll go right here. And what I would do now is I would just run back again, making sure and I've set up the now I've set it up so that I know that if I'm in whitewater, I'm okay. So let me zoom in here.
Then you're gonna put auto chart back on, I guess.
Yeah, I need auto chart because this chart, it's not giving me the best chart, and it's not giving me the information that you need.
If you want, you can show them how to right click right there and open best chart. That would probably be a good, right?
Let's see.
Yep, up at the top.
You know, I can't see it because the controls for the meeting are blocking it, but you can pick up best chart.
Okay.
Okay. Here it is. Okay. And that looks pretty good. And so I'm sure you get the idea. Now I would have to spend some time picking my way through that Sandy Hook channel.
Excellent.
In the same way, I would go to my marks page, edit mark, RYC class 2, look at my details, that same information. I can lock it. I could unlock it. I can even delete it. All right.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Gary.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yep, perfect. And I will start sharing. There we go. Okay. Share. Okay, so these programs differ a little bit, and in QTVLM they're called points of interest. It's basically the same as a waypoint. Same thing. You can put them anywhere, and you want to lock them as well because they're easily moved. Just as a highlight, a route is something that QTLM prepares for you. That's where it takes the weather and tie it into account as well. So what we're going to be doing is putting together a pathway. Okay, we're going to be Dale is going to be demonstrating that for you in a few minutes. Okay, and then the pathway will be optimized once we pick the weather and if we want current, we can do current and polars and sail chart. And even just to highlight for those of you that might not be interested in racing, you like Gary mentioned, the other value of the polars is it will even tell you the sailing time from point to point. Once you have the polars and the weather in, it'll tell you sailing time. Okay, in QTVLM, just to give you the 30,000 foot overview before Dale gets started. Here's your screen. You're going to go to you're going to right click. Here's your you create a mark. Okay, and you'll get to this screen, and it, like I said, it's called a point of interest. You can label it, and here's all your information on it. And there was here's a click box where you I'm sorry. There's a click box over here where you can lock it. Okay. We're not going to do a routing because that's optimization, but you can see in your ribbon, you're going to have where you can create a routing. It will bring you to this point where you can name your routing and everything like that. We will go over some of that in future classes. All right, so now that's it for me for right now. So Dale, why don't you, I'm going to unshare. Dale, you can share, and we can talk about how to do the same thing in QTVLM. Okay, so I'm unshared. You should be good to go.
There you go. Okay, I'm not muted. So I started here. This is the way QTVLM came up on my screen. And I have the charts downloaded, but this is where the boat was left when I initially installed QTVLM. And that's really not where we want to be. We've got to figure out how to get to Raritan Yacht Club. I can scroll out. I'm doing this with the wheel on my mouse. I can also use the minus key to scroll out, which may be easier to do when you're on the boat. And somewhere over here is where we want to center the chart here. And now we're going to scroll in or zoom in with the plus key. So there is already a route that I want to delete. Okay, so to create a route, it's really called a pathway, not a route in this. And so we want to create a pathway called class. And we're going to start from the first mark. And we just want to append POI. So now what we're doing is we're creating a route and POIs at the same time. So I click here. This is where Gary's first mark was. Now I want to pan to the right on this chart. And the best way I've found to do this while you're creating a pathway is to use the arrow buttons on your keyboard. If I were to click on the screen to try to move it, it creates another mark. So you can't click on the screen to move it while you're creating a pathway. You have to use the arrow buttons.
Hey, Dale, you might want to just do two things. One, explain to the audience what a POI is. And you also have a comment from one of the audience members suggesting that if you run into the same difficulty again, you might want to try and reduce the screen from maximize to something less. I'm not sure it will work, but it's a suggestion.
Yeah, I believe I have it not quite maximized now. A POI is basically a mark in QTVLM lingo, the same way that a pathway is a route. And so instead of having to create all the marks first, I'm dropping marks as I scroll along. We're now outside the Sandy Hook channel. This is our pathway that we've created, and we're just dropping marks and it's connecting the pathway to them. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's the equivalent of the visual marks tool in Expedition.
And so I want to drop a mark here. And then I'm going to go all the way out to the end of Long Island by the Block Island windmills. We'll go outside the windmills. And then I want to go up to Point Judith. And I want to zoom in here, and this is where we want to stop appending POIs. We have now created the entire route. We can scroll by dragging the mark, dragging the chart, and walk back over our route and decide we want to move this waypoint. It's not quite, we want to drag it a little further away from the windmills. We just click on it. You see this circle turns red and then it turns blue. When it turns blue, you can drag it by the label. So they're basically locked to keep you from just dragging them. Once it turns blue, you can click on it and drag it. So this is actually a different way of locking the waypoint that QTVLM uses. It's sort of automatically locked, and when you first click on it and try to move it, nothing will happen, and it's red, meaning it's temporarily locked. When it turns blue, you can drag the waypoint. So that creates the route, just like that. That's how I found to create routes. What can we do with this now? We want to edit a pathway. And it's kind of up here out of sight, but I can click on information. And this is the screen that Gary was talking about that shows you your courses and your distances. The one thing that I've found that I don't really like is no matter what I do, I always get a true magnetic or true compass bearing, not a magnetic bearing. So we're going to have to convert that somehow. What I also like to do is to export the pathway plan. And that puts it into an Excel spreadsheet. And I've got one open here. This is a route that I had made when I was prepping and preparing for this, and it shows you the marks that are in this route. There's more of them, the latitude and longitude of these marks, the bearing, which is also true, and the distance. And I was very amused to see that here it's using nautical miles for distance, and here it's using meters, which doesn't seem like a very good way to do it with me either. What could you do with this list now? You've got the latitude and longitude of the marks. You can print this out and take it to your boat and key these latitude and longitudes in as marks on your chart plotter. If you wanted to use a conventional chart plotter to create a route. If you wanted to do something more clever with that, we go back to QTVLM. And here we can we're back under the edit pathway menu. And here we can export a GPX file, which we could then save in a manner and somehow load that directly into your chart plotter.
Excellent.
Hey, Dale, just while you're pausing, there's actually two questions. The one question, we know Gary used the ENC chart. Which chart are you using? And number two, the second half of the question is, how did you pull this up?
So these are the RNC charts.
Yeah.
That are the paper charts that I've been used to looking at for a long time. How did I pull them up? How did I download them? Is that the question?
No, the question is more, how did you pull it into, well, actually the question probably is yes. How did you pull it up? Gary showed us how he started with just the non-chart version, and then he pulled it up. Is this just automatically loaded once you downloaded it?
Yeah, that's a good thing to discuss. The tiles, those 5 tiles is a good thing to mention right now.
Yeah, so up here are the different types of charts that you can use. I'm using RNC charts, and I just turned it off.
That's a world C map that shows now. It doesn't have any detail at all, but
I'm not sure it's a world C map, but it is the world map with
Yeah.
low resolution. That's the default chart that
Yeah.
comes with QTVLM. I had the RNC charts loaded on my computer, and I don't remember how I told them where to find them.
so you click on the R, the tile with the R is the raster charts.
That turns them on if you've got them loaded correctly. Yeah.
And the electronic is, I thought it was an E, but I don't remember which one.
I don't have any loaded on my
Okay, that's why.
computer right now.
So the other question, I think because you used the raster charts, Gary used the ENC, it's actually, I think, a good time to maybe talk about the differences and why you might use one versus the other. And I'd like to, I know, Dale, you're presenting, but I think I'd just like to open it up to both you and Gary to talk a little bit about that, starting with you, please.
I'm just familiar with using the raster charts, and that's what I've been using.
Okay, so Gary, I'd like to bounce it to you. Why would you use one versus another?
I like to look at both, actually. It depends what I'm doing. The advantage of the RNCs is that what's there is there. Nothing is ever hidden. The only limitation of seeing something when you zoom out is that you can't read the fine print, versus with the electrical, the electronic ENCs, that things disappear based on the zoom. In my experience, they're both, pretty useful. And I use both, and it really just depends on where I'm at frequently to decide which chart I'm going to look at.
Just to
Sometimes
hide. Go ahead, Gary.
I'll go from one to the other. If I'm looking, let's say you're doing the Block Island race, I'm in the Eastern Long Island Sound. I may just pull up that chart, the raster chart.
The other point, 2 points. One came up in the chat and I think I had highlighted in the first class. Raster charts are going to be sunsetted, so they're only going to be around for another 2 or 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
So keep that, and I know most of us are used to looking at raster charts because they look like the old paper charts. But we're going to be, it's going to be different in the next few years. So that's why we kind of do both. And the other piece I wanted to point out, just because I forgot. Thank you for somebody in the chat mentioning V is for vector charts. So the ENC charts will be under this V tile box in QTVLM.
Yeah. One of the nice things about the ENC charts, can I get control for a sec?
Sure.
I have to stop sharing.
Yep.
And while you guys are doing that, this is actually a good,
Okay.
it's a good segue right into Q&A.
So you see right here in the control bar, you're basically limiting what is going to be displayed. And so you can simplify things. And that's one of the benefits of the electronic charts. I mean, the data is still there, but it's a little easier to see to the eye. Now, we haven't mentioned tooltips, but if you turn on tooltip, this little control here in Expedition, it tells you what it is. And so, it's so easy to look at the old fashioned, paper charts, and you know what the symbols are, what it means if something's flashing and the color but here you have a simple picture, but I can actually see everything that I want to see with this tooltip. And you can actually query chart objects. That's the other thing you can do wherever your cursor is, which you can't really do on the paper chart because it's basically just like a PDF or a JPEG. There's no information other than what you're visually looking at. And there's basically a three-dimensional depth to these electronic charts. Depending on the zoom, you're going to see different things.
Okay. All right. I think if I could have control back.
Yeah.
Well, just before you go, Dale,
okay.
did you cover everything that you wanted to cover? I know you were second. We went through you pretty quickly. The two software programs are different. There are little nuances. They both really do the same thing. And I think you guys gave great overviews of what they are. Were there other things you wanted to cover before we stole back control of the screen from you?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
And
so, John, if there are any other questions,
so
or
Lou,
we can open it up for questions.
Well, before we open it up, Lou, we also wanted to do the survey. So just to the audience, we do have some questions that are helping us understand more what you are looking for, and also hopefully give us some direction as far as going forward. We're going to put those up on Zoom while the questions are coming up, so we can do both at the same time. And but please take the time to just answer. The questions will come up very, very shortly.
I have one thing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Just one thing I wanted to point out, which applies to both of them. I categorize marks and waypoints in 3 different sections. So there's mandatory, which is your first, which is where do you start, where do you end? Race start, race finish, port of exit, port of entry. Second one are safety. Okay. The ones you put in the middle, don't hit this, avoid that. And the third one is what I call, and both of those apply to whether you're racing or just cruising. The third one is a strategic mark, which is I want to go this direction, even though it's not part of the race. And I'll add those and delete those as the race goes on. Okay. That's just one of the things I want to point out. That applies to both.
Yeah,
Right,
Eric,
so-
yeah, Gary Knackman here. What you said about avoiding things or going in that direction with a mark is useful, because race notes sometimes are a little cumbersome to draw. And so sometimes you can put a mark on the edge of a shoal that you don't want to go over, and you say, leave that to port.
Yep.
And you miss the shoal. So it's kind of an easier way to do it.
Yeah. But also on the safety ones, so like in the presentation, you are avoiding buoys. When I'm cruising, I definitely am doing that. But as I'm racing, I'm gonna go through the buoys because someone's always on deck and you're going to monitor that in real time. So when we get to the actual routing, that impacts how the routing software works, having these additional marks in there.
Okay. Am I gonna, if I just share my screen again, am I gonna mess up the poll?
No,
Okay.
no.
So, go ahead,
There
John.
are a couple questions that
Yeah.
are out there that I'd like to just address.
Yeah, let's do that. This way these guys can share if it's a program related question. So go ahead, John.
So one of the questions is, can we enter a start and end of a pathway? And will the system load the needed ENCs? I'll let both Dale and Gary answer that question, because I think the answer is going to be the same, but just in case it's different for the 2 different programs, I'd like us to be able to answer it for both.
So you're asking, is it going to load the charts that are needed to cover a particular route?
I believe that's the question, yes.
I just downloaded all the charts for the United States.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're on my computer.
Yeah, I think the short answer is no. You got to download what you need ahead of time, is as far as I know.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of simple with these programs, because you basically just I may be getting confused whether you could just draw a box and it will tell you that it will pull it. Won't one of the programs just pull the charts down for that? It's been a while since I pulled down the charts.
Expedition doesn't have a chart loading tool inherent to it in the
Okay.
current version. And so you go to NOAA, you decide, which
What you
charts you
want.
want. Either,
Yeah.
it's very easy to do regions, like we're region 2, region 3, here,
Yeah,
and that's an easy way to do that.
Yeah, we had, and I think Gary, you might have included a link, but on the first class, we had a link to, there was a page where you could pull down by states or regions.
Yes.
Yeah, we walked through it. So it should be in the presentation, or the recording for the last session will be the answer in detail to that question.
So I'd like to point out how I got my charts was I often use Open Captain, and there's a chart downloader built into that. So Open Captain downloaded my charts for me. And then when I started to use QTVLM, I just pointed it to the same folder.
Yeah, okay, great. That's a great tip.
Dale, how did you point it to the folder though? I can't see that. I'm on an iPad in that program and can't find how to point it to the folder.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
So,
Okay.
so If
Thank
you
you.
go, if you go to QTVLM, I don't remember exactly where it is either, but when you go to charts there's going to be a download box, and in the download box will be a path name, or you can hit browse and direct it to another folder. I'm fairly certain that's how it's done. All right. Are we, let's see.
So the other question, Dale, I think I've answered it in the chat, but it'd be great to hear from you as well, is just, pathway, route. What are the differences when you're in QTVLM, and how would you describe the two?
So when we want to do weather optimization, we start with a routing, and it does the optimization and creates a route for you. That route has times when you're going to get to the waypoints, and what the weather is going to be as you go down that path or that route. A pathway is just a connection of points and a path to follow.
Okay, thank you. Adam, I'm just going to send a shout out because it's going to be faster. Yeah, I think it'd be nice to share the poll. Colin has a question about connecting Ray Marine Sea Talk to Expedition. He'd like us to go over that. So just some quick responses. You can see it in front of you. The majority of people on the call do not have Expedition, but there are over 10% of people who do. So that's probably somewhere in the number of 10 to 12 people who have Expedition. For the course, it looks like most people are planning to use QTVLM, but there's still almost 34% or 34% who are not going to. I'd like you guys just in the chat to send some of the software that you are planning to use. And then at the very bottom, interesting enough, most people are looking to do this for cruising. 40% are looking for the offshore distance racing. None of the people on board are using it for buoy racing. So that's just an interesting observation.
If I could just jump in too. So when I was putting the course together, the impression I had about OpenCPN, it was mostly a whole lot of real tech guys, real techies that were using that. And a lot of times they're running it on, single, reduced instruction set computers and stuff like that. So I thought it was more of a DIY type of thing. I'd be very interested if, how many people on the class would be intending on using OpenCPN. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have it in the pool, but some people are responding back with, yes,
Okay.
I use OpenCPN and
Okay.
Garmin software. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that might have been the one to cover then. Okay. So Eric, Dale, Gary, if you have a quick answer to Colin's question about tying in the Sea Talk network, we are going to, that is my plan to cover that in a future class. So that
I have a
answer
TikTok.
it quick. Okay, good. Otherwise we can just, that could be coming attractions and just a teaser for future classes.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead.
I have an ActiveSense NG unit, and it basically just plugs into your Sea Talk network, and then you have to get a special cable. You have to get the one that has the right cables to go into the Sea Talk NG network, and then you just plug it straight into your computer, and your computer will read it just as any other serial port, basically, or USB port.
And actually, that's a really good point if you're done, Kelly. Where I'd like to go with this class, after we finish the fourth class, we're going to work on additional topics. And, I can almost foresee it as an expedition users group or something like that, where we can solve these type of questions. And, if the weather is better, we might even be able to do something on site and doing a working session and kind of sort some of that stuff out.
So I have a picture. I actually have an ActiSense unit here if you want to see it. If you can see my camera, that's
Kelly, you
what
can
it
just
looks
put the,
like.
Yeah.
if you want to get rid of it, just put the price in the chat box for Colin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Um,
what it is.
Okay, and then the other thing that I'll be talking about in future classes is the possibility of maybe, you know, groups getting more involved in virtual racing, so that we have something to while away the, you know, maybe next winter with, or something like that. But, all right.
Yeah.
I think
So I did
Go
want to
ahead.
add one thing, you know, avoiding the technical connecting, because that is advanced. But one of the advantages of doing that is the data output from this software, your course and your mark all can display on your instruments. Okay, so you can see it on deck, even though your computer's down below.
All right, then I'm going to take control and share my screen again. And if anybody has any additional questions, you know, feel free to bring them up. Otherwise, we're going to close out because it's a little.
Well, don't forget the homework. You know, I'm big on homework.
It's in there. It's in there. Hold on. Let me. I am. As soon as I
So
find
there
the
is
chat.
another question that just popped up.
That's good, because I'm still looking for my.
In Open CPN, is there a way to download charts of the Caribbean area? That's in somebody else's shop. Somebody else has to answer that one.
I did have some charts that I downloaded of the Bahamas and the Caribbean, and I don't remember where I got them from.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. All right.
Okay, and we will email the reminder about the homework, just because if you're like me, you need the reminder to.
Okay, so I just want to thank Kelly and Dale and Eric and Gary for the prep time and the volunteering or being shanghaied into doing this. I appreciate that. And I want to thank the education committee. It's Paul and John and Adam that's been helping with running the Zoom and the prep and running the chat and the polls. I appreciate that. Okay, homework. As John, you are like the kid that at 5 of 3 reminds the teacher that he didn't give homework. You're gonna get your shit stolen in a lunch. You're gonna get beat up on the playground tomorrow.
Just know I never took. No books ever went home in high school. So just so you know.
All right.
Never.
You're somewhat recovered. That's your salvation right there. Okay, so for homework is to plot your own course from RYC to Newport in your software of choice, whichever one you have downloaded. If anybody has any questions or anything like that, you can also you can let us know, or you can look back at last week's class, and that will give you directions on how to download them in each program. Okay, so just to run down what we're doing in the future. Next class is going to be on the 16th, after everybody is satisfied and fat after Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about how to find weather, what some of the weather models are like, and how to download them. And then class 4 is going to be running an optimization. Okay, what else have we got going on at the club? Once again, as Adam mentioned, as we talked about last week, we've got that big BBI shindig on the 26th of March. It's going to be great. Everyone is welcome. If you can find your way down to RYC, you're going to be welcome. And on the 5th of March, this is new. We're going to have this class is, a lot of people, it's a fairly advanced topic, but we're going to take a jump back. And on the March 5th, we're going to have a class on So You Want to Buy a Boat. Arn Reinstead from the Annapolis Sail Yard is coming up, and he's going to do that presentation. And again, everybody's welcome. Dinner will be available afterwards. Bar will probably be open during and afterwards. Time is to be determined. It's looking more and more like it's going to be an afternoon presentation and finish up by dinner time. I'll have more information, as these evolve in the next sessions. So thank you again to everybody. Just our links are here, the webpage and our Facebook page. There's what I didn't put in there is the YouTube channel, which has we'll have the recordings up when Paul sends out the link to the recording. That's on the YouTube page, so you'll have that. And you also have it from last week. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to say? Paul, John, Adam, anybody? All right.
Nope.
Excellent. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. And feel free to reach out to any of us with questions or ideas for things. Keeping in mind we have a lot of things that on the advanced topics that we're going to be putting together, but you want to put in your 2 cents for what we should cover in the following classes or after, that would be great. And thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.